all of these character traits, everything from kindness to perseverance to, integrity. These are all things we need to practice. Otherwise, they're not character traits. And there's no such thing in the brain as kind of a set thing. Our brain will change depending on what we do with it and what we don't do with it. So whatever we want to be, whatever value we want to espouse in our life, we need to practice that value as much as we can every single day.
We do. Spot on. Brain guy strikes again.
Hello and welcome back to AYP Spike. I'm Adam Wright and I'm joined today by Andy Feast. I don't know why I went with a full name there. That felt a bit weird.
Very formal. I like it. But now people know not to say Feist. So
Feist. Yeah. I can't lie. I can't spell your name. Every time I write it down in like an email or something, I have to go back to. There's a for listeners. There is a newsletter where we interviewed you about yourself. And I that's the spelling I go back to. I literally Google it every time. It's like, how do I spell this name?
It's happened my whole life. It's 5 letters, but who knew they could cause so much trauma and challenge?
But also, there's another word, feast, isn't there? Which is like a lot of food, which is spelled completely differently.
Yeah, it is.
It's one of the fantastic quirks of the English language.
It is, isn't it?
Is that those two words mean sound the exact same, but they are utterly different.
On the topic of English language, it is a real difficult one to learn because the amount of iterations of combinations and these etymology of these words are just horrendously difficult to learn.
It is, for sure. And I don't think I know it. Sometimes we're in schools, and we were in schools this week, and kids are probably better at English than I am. In terms of grammar, structure, and like where to put a comma. I'm like, all over the place. You guys know what you're talking about, you know?
We delivered in this really lovely school yesterday, and we did this bit where we talk about the brain, obviously.
Surprise.
and how many neurons the brain has. And some kid said, like, I reckon there's about 26 billion. And then you went...
Don't out me like this. Don't out me like this.
You said some number as in like, add that much to get to...
56 billion.
Yeah.
So the number of neurons in our brain is about 86 billion. And it's obviously, if you add 56 billion to 22 billion, or whatever I said, it was... 68 billion, and I realised halfway through that it was simple mathematics.
You corrected yourself very quickly though, but it
wasn't very quickly. It was like 3 answers in. It was very bad.
Consummate professionals always.
And that happens actually quite a lot. We do a bit. A few weeks ago in our episode, we talked about neuroplasticity and the idea that when you practice, you get better at it. And when we do that bit in primary schools, we often do a bit to do with times tables, showing how quickly you know something, even if you don't necessarily enjoy times tables. Because most primary school kids and secondary schools are like that, really quick on the times tables.
With it.
But whenever I'm like, come up with a times table question to prove the point, I always go for like the most easy ones, like 5 times 5, which everyone knows anyway. So it doesn't really prove the point. I remember one time I was in a school and I did 2 times 10, and it's like everyone knows that. That's not. I haven't proved my point there.
I think you've proved your point. I think you're fine there. I just think it's we have to convey that we know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and we do know what we're talking about. It's just hard on the spot, man. It's hard on the spot.
It is. And we are, as you can tell from this podcast, it's very unscripted. And to some extent, every time we will deliver one of the sessions, workshops to our primary schools, it will be different every sort of time.
No, exactly. And 100%. And no 2 sessions are the same, which is why it's so fun and fantastic. All the answers are different. Even if we're like kind of doing the same thing, we always start with a general conversation about what the brain does. We get some fantastic answers in that.
We do, and they're always. I don't want to, but primary school kids always surprise me with how knowledgeable and switched on they are.
We had like people like. So what's happening in our brain? What does our brain do? Is kind of the opening question of one of our sessions, and it's like we had like prefrontal cortex, amygdala. Your amygdala does this. It's like
the hippocampus. It was.
I don't need to be here. You should take the session. Like, it's amazing.
But it was very strong, and the behaviour is always really impressive, and the teachers are on it. And
shout out to the teachers in the schools.
Yeah, incredible,
amazing.
Incredible. But we love it, don't we? And it's been a really good week, really positive week.
Fantastic.
We've been all over the place. Next week the same. Week after the same.
Exactly.
All the way up until Christmas, really. We are really jam-packed, so that's really good. But before we start, I'm going to just grab your attention just for 1 minute, and I'm going to show this to the listeners. We're in November. It would be amiss of me if I didn't talk about Stranger Things just for 1 second. Okay. Stranger Things season 5 is coming out soon. Netflix, please sponsor us. Look at these. Look at that.
For listeners, he's got the Hellfire Club socks on. Look at that.
And my little shoes. All right,
And
so
then the little shoes. Amazing.
that's all I wanted to say.
That's fantastic, man.
Let's do the
Let's
podcast.
do this. It's time for brain science. He's also rocking an all white outfit, which I really respect.
Yeah, I spilled a bit of tea down me this morning.
No, you can't. You don't.
But I don't think you can notice
You can't see
too
it.
much.
No,
which
you're all
is
good, man. You are all good.
Happy days.
Yeah. Speaking of going into schools and talking about
Yes.
people's attention and resilience and stuff, we're going to talk today about the neocortex.
Yes, we are.
Whoa, that's pretty exciting and cool. But specifically, the neocortex is the lumpy bit. Now there's a photo above my head, giving myself more homework. There's a photo of the neocortex above my head. Amazing acting again from Andy. It is what a kid described yesterday as a bunch of worms. It's the wrinkly bit at the top of our brains, right? It's right at the top. It's called the neocortex because it's the quote unquote new bit of the brain, even though it's been evolved for thousands and thousands of years, but it's the newest part of the brain. And it's a part of the brain that distinguishes us a little bit from animals, from other animals. And this thing allows us to basically exercise this thing called executive function. Dun dun dun. Executive control. This is the thing that allows us to kind of sit above our behaviors and not be ruled by them. It's kind of conscious activity happens in the neocortex. So, for example, I want to be better at something. I'm going to actively choose to do something to be better at that thing. That's kind of done by my neocortex. And you can strengthen that neocortex in the same way that we talked about a few weeks ago, neuroplasticity. By practicing something, you strengthen those things you're practicing. So, for example, we want to talk today about character traits. There's this belief that you are born like something and you stay like that. For example, you probably, listener, are a kind person. That's a fantastic thing. It's good to be kind. You weren't born kind, though. No. You weren't born kind. You maybe hopefully had a lovely kind upbringing, kind family that helped you to develop that kindness. But it's not an inherent property of your personality that you just are kind. It's something that you ideally you are practicing every day. You're strengthening that kindness and you're allowing that kindness to be stronger and stronger and stronger every day. And this is the thing that we need to talk about today specifically, is that all of these character traits, everything from kindness to perseverance to integrity, these are all things we need to practice. Otherwise they're not character traits, and there's no such thing in the brain as kind of a set thing. Our brain will change depending on what we do with it and what we don't do with it. So whatever we want to be, whatever value we want to espouse in our life, we need to practice that value as much as we can every single day.
We do. Spot on. Brain guy strikes again. So it's one of those where it sounds like we're having a really deep philosophical conversation about, like, are you born evil or good? Like, it sounds like one of those.
Born in the middle.
Yeah. Spot on, because it's such a overlooked sort of idea that we don't communicate and we're not speaking about. And that's so often the case on this podcast, hence why we are speaking about it. But the fact that, okay, well, if I want to get better at football, I know I need to practice football over and over again to enhance and refine those skill sets. Mm-hmm. The same as any other hobby, skill that you want to accomplish. So why are we not talking about kindness, perseverance, resilience in that same breath?
Exactly, yeah.
Because, like you said, the more we do something, the stronger that neural network will become, the faster those neurons will fire, and then we develop those skills in a better, more refined way.
Yeah.
So let's keep practicing it.
Exactly.
And when you are kind to someone, that it's a feel-good factor within ourselves. And we say this is one of our 12 rocks, kindness and gratitude.
Yeah.
It's important to, exhibit and practice these behaviours on a daily basis, because you'll become better at them.
No, exactly.
So, and when we speak about like resilience and perseverance, this week has been like, even with my clients in the evening with the year 11s, year 13s, year 12s, perseverance and resilience, these constructs are so vital in life in general, like so important.
Yeah.
If you have an ability to just give up when like the going gets tough, you are not going to succeed academically. You wouldn't succeed in your professional life. You might not even succeed with social relationships and connections, because as soon as something's difficult and there's a bit of a stumbling block, you let that hinder your chances of success.
Exactly.
So practicing it. Every time you do something you don't want to do for the betterment of your future self, you're practicing doing that, and you're practicing getting better at doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
If you let it defeat you, you will continuously let it defeat you.
Yeah.
Because you just become really good at it.
And it's exactly, it's kind of like you're not building the muscle, and your brain is not a muscle, but like if we use the analogy of muscle, you're building the muscle of perseverance if you keep trying at something. So let's say you've got a difficult maths question, you're doing long division for the first time, right? If you keep at it, you keep going. You're not only getting like learning the maths, right, which you will do if you keep practicing it. That is how our brain works. Even if you don't enjoy it, you will learn it and practice it. You're also practicing the perseverance of keeping going at something and getting to another point. Because the thing is, as all adults will know, and most of the kids listening to the show as well will know that there are things that are really hard, you find really difficult, but you've got to keep going at them. You can't just give up on them. And I think that using the metaphor of the analogy actually of kind of sports is a really good one, because we know that to get better at playing football or gymnastics or whatever sport we enjoy doing, we need to practice it. We know that it's called training often, and that's
Yeah.
all it is. It's just practice, right? It's practice. You practice different things, you do different drills, you do all that kind of stuff, and it's the exact same with every other part of our personality, every part of our kind of every skill we want to develop. Is just how much we practice it is going to be something we get better and better at doing. But kindness is a value that we practice is also really important, because the thing is, as we've said before, kindness spreads. If I'm kind to someone, they're going to be kind to someone else, they're going to be kind to someone else, and that ripples out like it's got an R value in the same way that an infectious disease does. It will actually spread out, and your being kind is also helping someone else to engage in their kindness circuits at the top of their heads as well, which is fantastic. But even strengthening these things in these are conscious behaviors, because you are choosing to be kind, right? You're like it's a conscious you probably think you're kind and you probably act on being kind, but you can get to the point where you strengthen it so much and you kind of inhabit it every single day. So things like we call it gladden, which is like something you're grateful for every single day, and there's a few more things as part of that. That also strengthens your kindness circuits, but it also allows you to notice that you're strengthening your kindness circuits, and you get better at noticing small kind things that happen, because at some points in our lives we can be it allows us to appreciate the world around us more, which makes us even happier, if that makes sense. So like noticing when someone's been kind to you, if you're someone who's kind of predisposed to that level of kindness because you practice kindness a lot yourself, you're going to notice that more, and it's going to affect you more than maybe someone who doesn't notice people being kind to them all the time, because it's just kind of maybe a more alien experience to them, which is it's obviously quite sad. But understanding that these are things you can practice, these are things you can improve, and that's something that we can do every single day. Not only for kindness is good for other people, but it actually fundamentally affects how our brains work. Being kind and being patient and developing this executive function stuff is going to only help us in our lives and allow us to be better at managing our emotions, managing our worries, managing our anxieties, all that stuff, all by practicing positive traits, skills. Is amazing. What an amazing thing
Spot
that
on.
is.
And you'll have it where parents, adults, people that are in full-time work like ourselves, and you have a difficult day at work, something negative might have happened, your boss might have shouted at you, you might have had a difficult meeting. You hold that, you carry that, you bring it home, and then you're a bit off with your spouse, you're a bit off with your kids, you're a bit off with the family around you, because you've carried that weight of upset and hurt home. And instead of self-regulation and regulating how you feel and managing those emotions in a healthier way, you let it spiral and you let it affect the others around you. And that's fundamentally what we want to avoid, all right? So we don't want to spread that sort of upset that we might be feeling. So there are ways that we have to process and deal with it more effectively, all right?
Yeah.
So it's a challenge,
Yeah.
We all have difficult lives and difficult moments in life, and how do we not let that, sap into other people? So it goes back to that spreading kindness, and if we are able to deal with our own emotions in a better way, that will enable us to be kinder more often and spread more happiness and joy and love, instead of suffering and making other people suffer for our hurt and pain.
No, for sure. It's this idea of, what are neocortex, our insight circuits, as we call them as well. We also call them pause circuits, as in pause, like stop, and pause, like to allow you to pause before doing something. We call this ability metacognition. It's the amazing part of our brain where we notice what's happening and we don't just get ruled by our emotions. And strengthening the neocortex, the about 3 millimeters thick part of our brain at the top, will allow us to be more metacognitive in every single aspect of our life. So practicing skills that strengthen that part of our brain will allow us to then, in completely seemingly unrelated aspects of our lives, we will then be able to control our emotions, our responses, our fears, all that stuff more because we've developed this metacognitive skill. And, that is a fantastic thing that will set you up so fantastically for life, but also allow you to live the most fulfilled life possible because you feel like you're more in control of everything, like you're understanding how, your brain works, why it's doing this. So, for example, understanding why our worry system will activate in certain situations, understanding how to manage that in ourselves, but also by talking to other people, allows you to then not be ruled by those worries as much. Because if, and this is the case before I understood all this stuff, before I was taught all this stuff, worries weren't something that was kind of in your head. Worries were something you experienced, something that was kind of maybe slightly paralyzing for me specifically, like, stopping me doing certain things. For example, I used to be really scared of public transportation. I used to not want to go on public transport because, I said before, I grew up in a small town. Like buses and trains, especially the tube, really scared me. I mentioned this last week. But understanding the metacognitive skill of understanding when a fear arises, and even now, those things, I was up in London last week for a gig, and it was fantastic. There's actually a Substack out about it right now. But that kind of fear always arises in me a little bit whenever I'm on, in busy places, on public transport, all that stuff. But I've developed my metacognition. I've developed that part of my brain to understand that when I feel fear, I can notice that I'm feeling, oh, there's this weird thing going on. And that's going to allow me to then manage that feeling much, much better, that emotion, that behavior much, much better than I would have if I hadn't noticed this stuff's happening. And the thing is, it's literally it's a biological fact that if you practice these things as skills, these behaviors, these character traits as skills, you will strengthen that part of your brain, which will allow it to then manage other parts of your brain better. And that's amazing. But it's just it's about inputting that into everyday life. You've got to start doing that stuff today, So making sure that we are practicing kindness, practicing integrity, practicing, think of a character trait that you would like people to describe you as, whatever that character trait is. Obviously, hopefully a positive one. Practice that. Are you practicing that every day? I'm sure you are already, but just noticing when you're practicing that, and knowing that that is actually literally building up your ability to do that thing in a better way, in a more effective way every day, which is amazing.
All right. As you are a neuroscientist, I can ask you a question.
Ooh,
all right.
On the spot.
This is on the spot stuff, but let's mix it up. So, when we talk about like metacognition,
Yeah.
Is like another word for metacognition self-awareness?
Kind of. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd say self-awareness. Metacognition is more the brain's activities.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is normally kind of regularly termed as like understanding how you are being perceived, I would say.
Okay.
But metacognition is like what's happening in my brain right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Like how I'm feeling right now and why I'm feeling like it. But self-awareness is like, how is Andy necessarily perceiving me, even though I can't
So it's
understand
almost
that.
like adjacent. So you need your metacognition to work effectively to be able to see how others view you and the perceptions of you.
I think you can definitely link them together. I think that self-awareness, like you can have a self-awareness within yourself of how you are exhibiting yourself. But for example, let's talk about an example. That's a good question actually. So, my example, well done, you did it. Good question. So, like, if you're angry, for example,
Yeah.
and you're not metacognitive, you're just angry. You don't even necessarily realize you're angry, but you're angry.
Yeah.
You also will probably lack a self-awareness to understand that you're angry and that how that's affecting other people.
Okay.
So they go hand in hand in a way that metacognition would be like, oh, I'm angry. Why am I angry? Is it because I haven't had lunch yet?
There you go, yeah.
And then self-awareness of understanding that this anger, if I'm not managing it, and therefore it's affecting people around me. So they go together, but I would say metacognition is more cognition based.
Yes.
To do with our
Okay.
brains.
So I just wanted to touch on self-awareness, and now we've got the definitions on lock.
Write them down.
It's just because self-awareness is. I've always looked at self-awareness as being a skill of which is one of the most crucial we can have. To be able to see and observe how people respond and people react to us based on our behaviours and the way we are, the way we exhibit ourselves, and almost the way that we want to put ourselves forward to the world, okay? Some people can be more selective about what they show and what they don't show.
Yeah.
To be unapologetically yourself, I think, requires a level of self-awareness where you need to know that you are impacting other people's lives positively.
Yes.
Okay, so having a self-awareness to actually look and go, okay, I know I've had a real dark, difficult week this week, all right? I know that. I know how that normally makes me feel because I've experienced it before. So how am I going to make sure that I develop the skills to not let that happen again in the same way, even if you've had a dark day or dark week? Yeah, to be self-aware enough to go, okay, I'm going to remove myself from this situation because I know if I stay for another 5 minutes listening to this, that, or the other, I'm going to get angry and
Yeah.
flip my lid.
Yeah.
So I'm going to remove myself, and that's a level of self-awareness.
Yes, I think so.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I hope so. Fingers crossed.
We'll find out.
You'll find out. So I just think
no.
it was just a thought, just adjacent to metacognition. It's I just always looked at it as something like, and I'm trying to coach it at the moment to some extent of like, well, how can you develop skills of self awareness? Well, you can start journaling and start a
Yeah.
diary. And let me tell you this right now, I coach 16-year-old lads, 16-year-old girls, and without making a sweeping generalisation, there is some adverse reactions to me encouraging journaling and diary writing,
Yep.
which I understand, I appreciate. If I was completely honest and self-aware enough with myself, if I got told to do that at 15, 16,
Nah.
do you know what I mean? I
Nah,
probably,
mate.
I,
It's not
yeah,
happening.
I'm not sure what a horrid little kid I was. But like, it's like, how do I try and encourage, like, breaking that perception of like, if you do show that you are journaling or writing a diary, this happened to me today and it made me feel like this. That is such maturity and such,
Yeah.
like, you're striving for personal growth and development, and that is such a wonderful thing and accolade to possess. So to sort of switch the perception on that whole sort of field and go, it's a bit like meditation and all these skills that we want to encourage because they can help us become more metacognitive and they can help us use our executive functions and develop these skills more readily. So, okay, why don't you want to do that? Well, I don't want to, it sounds weird and it's, I don't want to be vulnerable or seen as weak, right? That's often something I get, some of the responses I get. So to encourage young lads specifically, sorry to alienate the female listeners, but to encourage young lads to be open and vulnerable and say that it's not a weakness. Vulnerability is not a weakness. If you hold things inside, it will manifest and grow and become something quite nasty and vindictive.
Yeah.
So deal with it. Start practicing these skills because it's only going to help you in the future. Because you can manage your emotions better.
Absolutely.
Because you actually understand, well, this has happened so many times and I've reacted this way. How do I know? Well, I've kept a note of it. I keep doing it. I keep writing about it. I keep thinking about it. I'm mulling it over in my head. So I know now when that happens again, because inevitably it might, I'm not going to react like that. I'm going to remove myself from the situation. The maturity and level of self-awareness you've developed there is strong.
Yeah.
And it's not a weakness, all right?
No,
Just wanted to say that just for the young men out there, because,
No, absolutely.
one of the reasons I got into this line of work is how impassioned I felt about getting men talking, all right? Because it is something that we don't do very often.
Yeah. No, it's 100%. I think that's a really good point as well. Like the idea that, if we think of, the way I think of this stuff is everything we do, we're practicing something all the time.
Yeah.
Whether it's conscious or not. And so if you're bottling your emotions and you're not talking about them and you're not even, subconsciously not managing them because you don't have an outlet for it, you don't understand the ways of it and you're adverse to other ways of doing it, you're actually getting better and better at kind of bottling anger and turning it into something else, which is why so many, adults maybe can't articulate how they feel very well because they haven't developed the ability to over their lives. That doesn't mean they can't. They can always, as we've always said, you can always change your brain. There's always things you can do, and there's always ways you can change it. And you're not ever set ever, in your ways. But that's probably why that's partially why it's so important to develop this stuff at the younger age, because you haven't had years and years and years of living in a certain type of brain, in a certain type of neural architecture that you've been developing that's told you that you can't express your emotions freely like this. That's why it's so important to develop when you're younger, because then you're going to go forward through your life and not have to deal with that bottling of stuff, but also you are strengthening that stuff. And I think journaling is a really good point. And actually what we should talk about now, before we end the episode, is kind of ways of strengthening your kind of insight circuits and your executive function, your neocortex, through ways of, be kind. Okay, hold the door open, people, nice, sorted, but that's a bit contextual. You need be kind all the time. I'm sure you are anyway, so that's fine. But there's other ways you can strengthen it as well. So I think something else we need to conceive of is this idea that attention is a skill as well. And when you're practicing attention, you're practicing paying attention / not paying attention to something. You're also strengthening / weakening your ability to pay attention to something, which is kind of crazy. And it's why, everyone always says these days, your parents probably say it, you probably understand it yourself, in whatever capacity of life you're in, that your attention span is pretty shorter than it would have been 50 years ago. Part of this is because screens just are so entertaining, and we get such quick dopamine hits from them, from scrolling through Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts, or whatever it is we're doing, TikToks, that we don't need to develop attention. We don't need to develop long-term attention. We can just use small ones. For example, I'm going to make this a YouTube Reel, this little clip here, because the YouTube Reel retention time, which is how long people are watching, is 2 seconds. So I have 2 seconds to grab someone's attention to make them watch maybe a 30-second clip before they scroll past and move on.
Can I say my joke again?
I probably failed. Yeah, go on.
Get out of here. Don't stay. Please leave. No, we actually really want you to watch these videos.
Watch these videos and watch the longer versions and listen to the podcast.
Please subscribe.
But the thing is, most people have already scrolled past because they didn't grab their attention in those 2 seconds, because they're not.
2 seconds is crazy.
It's insanely fast. You've really got to and I'm not that interesting. When we're not practicing attention, we're getting better at not paying attention to things, which is a weird inverted thing. You just would think that it wouldn't work like that, but that is how it works. So we need to practice paying attention to things. And this is something I'm trying to do. Like, for example, I am a dual wielder of activity, right? If I'm cleaning my room, I'm watching a video at the same time. If I'm doing something, I'm doing something else at the same time. And our brains can't multitask. We actually have this conversation with adults quite a lot, actually. The idea of multitasking is a myth. You cannot multitask in the way that you think you can do two activities simultaneously. It is not true.
In effective ways for both.
What happens when we do 2 things at once, or 3 or 4 things, which is now we're ending up doing, is we're really quickly switching our attention between those things, which means we're practicing a completely different skill from the more complicated task of paying attention to them for a long time, And I find this it's in everything we do these days, but one of the most important things we can do to combat this is pay attention to things for longer. One of the best ways we can strengthen our neocortex is by reading, just reading a little bit every day. It's something I've really tried to work on this year. I used to be a massive reader. Then I went to uni, and then I kind of fell out of love with reading because I was reading so many academic books that I was like, I don't want to read in my free time because I've just been reading all day.
And I'm not going to slander academic papers. Bit of a side note, my lovely brother's a lecturer. He just published his second study. Well done, Mr. James Feast, absolute hero.
Everyone check it out.
Check it out on Google Scholar, wherever you get your
visual
exploratory activity academic papers. Please go read them. It's very good for him. But not to slander that world of academia. I've got my
master's degree over it.
Got a master's degree. Yeah. But oh my word, some of it can be dry.
Yep.
I do not blame you that you fell out of love with reading because of that. It is difficult, and they are long papers.
Yep.
I love the little summary at the start. Just
that's what you need, the abstract, and then
just read the abstract.
For the students out there, abstract and conclusion, and Command F. Find the word you're looking for. I did my dissertation on satire.
Maybe we'll
Command F satire, mate.
We'll do another episode of
Study
uni
tips.
Advice, uni tips. Yeah. No, but for real, read the whole paper. But yeah, I don't blame you for falling out of love with it. So to be able to recapture that is important because, as you said, to strengthen those attention circuits, it's a really nice way of doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm reading Harry Potter, obsessed with it, love it. I've probably said it on this podcast before. My clients are sick to death of me talking about it.
I'm a bit
I can only apologise. So obsessed, it's crazy.
It is crazy. We talk to everyone we find about it.
Literally everyone.
He's like a child, you take him somewhere and he goes, Harry Potter.
Literally everyone. God, what is wrong with me? So, to find that thing that you love and you care about, and if that's something to do with reading, it's just helping you out. So instead of going on TikTok for an hour before bed, now I'm reading. And that's something I'm really proud of myself for, to be completely honest, because now I can coach it without feeling guilty.
Hey,
come on.
Nice one. But also, I think that it also gets to another really crucial point here that I used to read all the time. I used to read literally 13, 14 books a year, and I was really proud of it, right? And then I stopped doing that, and my ability to read went down. Not like my ability to read like the actual words, right? But my ability to read. I forgot. No, but my ability to read books at quickly and enjoy that process and basically pay attention was reduced because my brain is neurally plastic, and as everyone's. It changed. got better at me watching short form videos, reading academic papers, and then not reading long form fiction books. So one of the things I'm really trying to do this year is bash through books. You know, get into a reading habit. I read every single day, even when I'm out late. Even if it's just a page, I read every single day, and I'm really enjoying it. I've got through 7 books since I graduated in July, just because I'm going through them, and there's so many amazing books out there. Every time I go into Waterstones, it's like it's a bit overwhelming. It's like I want to read that, I want to read that, I want to read that. It's too much, and it's fantastically fun, and it's strengthening my neocortex, which means I can pay attention to something for longer. So we need to practice paying attention for things longer, and crucially, I would give the advice of try and pay attention to one thing for longer, because I'm as bad as this as the next guy. I am doing multiple things at the same time. And the thing about reading is you can only do one thing at the same time. You can't, if you're trying to read something, try and understand it, and ideally the book grabs your attention and you sucks you in, so you don't feel like you're having to strengthen that muscle, like like I'm bored doing this, but I need to pay attention. But for example, YouTube videos. I'm someone who will put a YouTube video on and then get up a Subway Surfers on my phone and swipe away. Like, what am I doing? Do one thing, mate.
What a bit of nostalgia.
Do one thing, and that's the thing. Like, that's something I need to improve on. I think all adults need to improve on. It's just let's do one thing at a time here. Focus on the thing we're doing and build that attention.
And do it well.
And do it well.
I think that's it. Give time, effort, and energy into that task.
Yeah.
It's the same with revision with our clients. Just you do your study reps, you do your 25 minutes, give yourself a little break and go again. Do 2 of those, you've done an hour, 50 minutes of really effective revision. But the whole point of a study rep is that it is short, manageable, digestible chunks of revision. So making sure your whole focus of attention is on the task at hand.
Exactly. And then you can also fantastically, if you give your whole attention to things all the time, right, then you get to give your whole attention to the fun thing you want to do after that.
Spot on.
But you're not having to multitask because you're not having to multitask, even though it's not really a thing, between 2 things, because you're like trying to do both things. Oh, I want to have fun, but I also need to do some work. So I'll put a video on whilst I'm doing this homework or whatever.
And you're hurting both experiences.
Exactly,
you're
hurting both
fully
experiences.
enjoying it, and you're not fully doing your work.
And you're not developing the correct, you're not developing your neural architecture in a way that's actually really going to benefit you in the future. You need to do, for attention is a skill. Kindness is a skill. Patience is a skill. These are all things you need to practice and develop every single day in whatever capacities you can. And there are a bunch of ways of doing that. But the best way of practicing, one of the most important things to practice is attention. So, I don't know what you're doing when you're listening to this podcast, person, but you're doing a good job paying attention because you've, practicing attention. Presumably you're not daydreaming. Hello, daydreamer. Come back.
if you've got to the end, we'll give you a medal.
Exactly. Right? We'll give you a medal. We're going to hand them out to all 12 of you who make it to the end of the episode. But you're practicing. Yeah, exactly. Me, I'm 2 of them because I have to listen to this twice. That you're practicing attention right now, and that's fantastic. And it doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It doesn't always have to be negative. It's practicing attention can be, for example, going to the cinema. You have to practice attention because you can't go on your phone in the cinema. You have to watch the film. Hopefully the film's engaging, but you're still practicing attention in that moment. It's like you need to practice these things because every single thing our brain does, everything, is a skill. If we are not practicing it, we are not improving it. So you need to practice it every day. So practice, attention, kindness, integrity, all of that stuff.
Perseverance.
Every day. Perseverance, and they all, they relate to each other. Practicing attention is also practicing perseverance because it's when you don't have much attention span, for example, you're practicing that by continuing to practice it. You're practicing perseverance at the same time, like that kind of stuff. Everything is a skill. Practice everything, intentionally in the way you want to do it, and you will be set up for the future. And do the hard thing, Don't take the easy way out because your brain likes easy. It likes, and if you are doing, multiple things at the same time, you're watching TikTok whilst watching a YouTube video whilst making dinner, then your brain is getting better at doing, basically nothing amazingly well at one time. It's getting better at switching between tasks quite quickly, but also not fulfilling that task in a super effective way. I've burnt my dinner so many times because I've been like, there's so many times that my fire alarm at home is aggressive. It's it's good as it should be. It is very attentive to any kind of smoke. So when you leave it in the toaster for too long, it's like, hello, there's a fire, mate. And it's just a toaster. But I've done that so many times because I've just got lost in Mickey van der Ven's Wonder Goal, for example, this week.
If only we could show you the clip.
We can't. It's copyrighted, but check it out. It's a good goal. It's a good goal.
Absolute beauty. What a lovely way to end, eh?
Exactly. I thought I'd end it that way.
Thank you. It's very kind. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for listening. And please check us out on YouTube. Also, if this helped you enjoyed it even a little bit, share it with your friends. You know, the best way of sharing stuff these days is friend recommendations, because you are bombarded with, oh, you should watch this TV show by Netflix, you should watch this Apple TV show, you should listen to this podcast by this famous person, you know. But like, the real way that this stuff grows and spreads is by people saying, you know what, this thing, I liked that, check it
Give
out,
it a
mate.
go.
So if you enjoyed, please share us with your friends. And if you're watching this if you watch this, came from Shorts, well done from practicing your attention
Yeah.
for this episode.
Serious.
Keep doing it. Keep watching all the episodes. We're out every Monday. So,
Yeah. Thank you
anyway,
very much.
thanks for listening.
Cheers, guys.
We will see you next week.
Cheers.